Hello, Year 3. It's stopped raining today. It's been fun to being in school. We didn't manage to get out for break time, but we did at lunchtime, which was good. I hope you've all been working really hard this week. I have been super impressed with the learning that I've been seeing on Purple Mash and the stuff that I've had emailed to me as well. I've really enjoyed looking and reading your character swaps and who you would swap lives with. Very interesting to see that some of you would like to swap lives with Ariana Grande, and even somebody said they'd like to swap lives with the Hulk, which I thought was really interesting. I hope you've all been getting on okay with your maths. The times table battle we had going was won by the boys this week, but I have set up another battle for next week, so hopefully, girls, you'll have a really good chance at beating the boys this week. Currently, at the moment as well, across the whole school, the children are beating the teachers in a battle. Teachers have been hard working, so perhaps that's why we haven't had much time to go on Times Table Rockstars as you guys have, whether you've been learning at home or in school. Now, next week, there are more learning tasks that will be on Purple Mash. Your maths is mainly on BBC Bitesize, and where it has the worksheets, you don't have to print them off. You can just look at the questions and write them down in a notebook or on a piece of paper. Now, last week we read chapter one of our story, The Hen Who Wouldn't Give Up. So now I'm going to carry on and read chapter 2. Chapter 2 is called Hilda Gets a Lift. The sun was shining brightly when Hilda woke up next morning. I'm sure I shall find something to take me to Muchwallop today, she thought. She set out straight after breakfast, looking very important. Anyone could see that she was a hen who was going somewhere. She went down the farm lane and along the main roads towards Muchwallop. Right through the village of Little Dollop she went and past the few cottages on the other side. But she saw nothing she might ride on, except an old doll's pram in somebody's front garden, and that was not much good without somebody to push it. Then she saw the very thing. It was big and red, shining in the sun, and the driver was just getting into it. There was no time to dither. One thing was certain, it was not a dust cart. And after her terrible experience of the day before, that was all that mattered to Hilda. She would ride on this. The extraordinary thing was that a lot of other people seemed to have the same idea. Several men jumped onto it at the same time as Hilda, men with shiny helmets. Hilda had no time to wonder why. She was too busy hanging on. The fire engine, for that what it was, had set off at a terrific speed. Hilda was sure she would fall off. She closed her eyes tightly as she was joggled and rattled about, and the wind whistled through her feathers. The big silver bell winking in the sun above her head began to clang and clang. It was all very exciting, and Hilda began to enjoy it. She opened her eyes and looked around her. There was a ladder just above her. She could perch more securely on that. She scrambled up to it and hopped right to the top. She had a splendid view from up there. She could see for miles. Everything scattered in their path. Carts, dogs, and bicycles rushed for the shelter of the hedge when they saw and heard the fire engine approaching. Hilda was delighted. They would soon be at Muchwallop at this rate. Then she saw to her horror that they were turning off down a side road. This was no good. She would have to get off. "Stop!" she squawked. "Stop! I want to get off!" But of course nobody heard her above the noise of the bell. Then they did stop suddenly. Hilda was nearly jerked off her perch on the top of the ladder, and the ladder began to move. Before Hilda realised what was happening, she was going up and up into the air. They had reached the fire, and the ladder was being sent up to the top windows of a very tall house, so that a fireman could climb up and rescue anybody trapped on the top floor. Poor Hilda wished she had a parachute. The smoking windows were getting nearer and nearer, and she did not want to be a cooked chicken. Then a ladder came to rest against the side of the house, and Hilda was relieved to find that she was not to be tipped right into the fire. She heard something coming up the ladder behind her, and was just going to look round when whoosh! A column of water hit the wall beside her, and she was drenched. "Oi!" shouted a voice behind. "Watch what you're doing with those hoses down there. It's not my bath night." Then the fireman saw Hilda, a little huddle of wet feathers, hunched up at the top of the ladder. "Hello," he said. "What are you doing up here, young lady? You don't look much of a fireman to me. I'll have you down in a jiffy. Just hang on while I have a look around." The fireman climbed over her and disappeared over the windowsill into the smoke. He was soon back again to Hilda's relief. Nobody's there, my love. Come on, down we go. He took off his helmet and gently lifted Hilda off her perch and placed her in it. She settled down gratefully and had a comfortable ride back to earth again. It was really awfully kind of him, particularly as she was so wet. Hilda said thank you in the only way she knew. She laid a nice brown egg in his helmet. He felt it there when he put in his hand to lift her out. Well, I'm blessed, he said, drawing it out. Thank you, love, that'll do fine for my tea. What have you got there? Asked another fireman coming over to look. The fire was out and the firemen were getting back on the engine to go home. Good heavens, it's Hilda from Biddick's farm over Little Dollop Way. We'd better take her home. So Hilda had another ride on the fire engine, but sedately this time, in the kind fireman's helmet. He dried her as best as he could with his hanky and let the sun do the rest. All the other firemen were jealous about the egg. Come on, Hilda, lay one for us, they teased her, but Hilda pretended not to notice. When they got to Little Dollop, Hilda's fireman sat her down at the farm gate. She gently pecked his hand to say goodbye and then squeezed under the gate and strutted into the yard. She had created quite a sensation. It isn't every day that a hen arrives home in a fire engine. All her friends watched. It was only when she had told them all about it that Hilda realised that her adventures were not over. She had not seen her auntie's new chicks at Much Wallop. She would try again tomorrow. Now, I hope you really enjoyed that, and next week we'll find out what happens to Hilda again on her adventures. Keep up the hard work, Year 3. Try and enjoy the sunshine when we get it, and send in photos of your work. You can send it to the class email address or onto Purple Mash, and keep trying your best, and I will see you next week.